Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and in this episode, we're going to begin my deep dive into my complete Bronze Age Wonder Woman run. So I have a Bronze Age Wonder Woman run beginning with issue 178, where they start the New Look era, the I Ching era, where she loses her powers. And I have a complete run from issue 178 all the way up until the end of Crisis, when the original series was canceled with number 329. So starting in this video, I'm going to be showing off the entire run. This time around, we're going to start with the first 50 issues of that run, so it will be 178 to 227, and that actually works out perfectly because 227 is a perfect break point since there's another soft reboot in the next issue, 228. So next video we'll start with that. So we're going to be seeing a lot of these reboots here. So here's my story behind this collection. I've always really liked Wonder Woman quite a bit, but I hadn't really read her series. A number of years ago, I decided to take the plunge and get into Wonder Woman and read these series. And at the time, this is pre-movie hype, and her stuff was really cheap. Most of the Bronze Age run was basically worthless. And I got a lot on eBay that was something like 100 issues of Wonder Woman for like $108 or something. So it was basically $1 each. And that there's 151 issues in this run from the Bronze Age, from 178 to 329, maybe 152, I guess. And I got about 100 of them all at once. And so then over a period of a year or two, I filled in all the rest of them. The New Look issues are definitely the hardest ones to get. And then I sat down, but the thing is, I didn't read any of them. I didn't read any of them until I had the entire run. And then I sat down and I read them all in order. And the result was kind of strange, because what ended up happening is that I really fell in love with the character, even though most of the stories are really crappy. So the stories in these issues tend to range from mediocre to really bad. There aren't very many particularly good issues of Wonder Woman. This is going to be a controversial opinion, though. I have to say that for my money, in terms of just pure writing, the New Look Wonder Woman era, where she does not have her powers, for me, it is clearly the best run of the Bronze Age Wonder Woman. Out of those 150 some issues, the ones where she doesn't have her powers are the best. There's a couple other runs that are decent. Right at the end, there's a really underrated run by Dan Mishkin, but we'll do that in a couple more videos. But I've never read a series that was so disjointed and so messed up, and with creative teams that seemed to care so little about the character, and they just couldn't figure out what they're doing, and so they kept rebooting it over and over and over. For my count, I think I would count like 6 different reboots. It depends on how you define the term, but there's a reboot in 178, which we're going to start with here in a second. There's another one in 204 where they bring her powers back, and some other stuff happens. For me, there's another one in 211 where they dump the Conager era stuff and they start to give her a new direction. Some people might not consider that to be a full reboot, but I'll argue in a minute why I think it is. Another reboot in 228 where all of a sudden the series shifts to be about the Earth 2 Wonder Woman. And then sometime, I forget exactly, but like 243, 244, so it switches back all of a sudden to the Earth 1 Wonder Woman. But then that only lasts for about 20 issues. There's another reboot in issue 269, like a complete reboot where Diana loses her memory of everything that's happened to her since she left the island, and then she leaves the island. So it's basically resetting the character to issue 1. And that still, they end up doing another soft reboot in just a little bit later in 288, when Roy Thomas and Gene Colan come aboard, and they give her the new logo and a new direction again. and it's just such a mess. It's just over and over. Of course, that sounds like modern comics, right, where they're doing a new number one every 20 issues. But it's just when you read these, it's just a mess. And her rogues gallery is terrible, but somehow I ended up just loving the character more. The more I read, the more I liked the character, and the more frustrating it was that so many of the stories were so bad. But I have the full run here, and I'm actually going to cheat. We're going to jump right into it now. I'm going to cheat. I said I was starting with 178. I'm actually starting one issue earlier with 177, still in what I would call the Silver Age. And I collect Supergirl stuff as well, and this happens to have a Supergirl appearance, so I picked this up because of the appearance. And it's also a really good contrast to have compared to the issue that comes right after it, because it's just pure Silver Age wackiness. And I think I'm gonna just pop it open real quick, because if I remember right, the creative team on this book is kind of an oddball one, and of course it doesn't have credits in it, because thanks DC for ruining my video. I think Irv Novick is on pencils, I think, but I think it's actually written by like Jerry Siegel or something. It's anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not very good, and that's an understatement. And of course, Supergirl and Wonder Woman both come off really badly in it. So the series was in desperate need of a breath of fresh air. 178. It's always kind of a question, I think, for me and for some other fans, which is the key, 178 or 179, because 179, the next issue, has the classic cover, and the action, the plot and stuff really picks up in 179. But here's 178, and these initial issues were actually written by Denny O'Neil, who was sort of DC's go-to person when they were doing these modernizations. So in a very short period of time, same writer, Denny O'Neil, did the New Look Wonder Woman. He did the New Look Batman with Neil Adams, where they made him grim and gritty again. He did the New Look Green Arrow, and of course wrote Green Lantern and Green Arrow. And he was responsible for the new Superman era with 233, where they depowered him some. And so Denny O'Neil really just churning out great stuff one after another. And here we are, 178. I picked this up. I think I paid $20 for this. I might have gotten this on a road trip in Oregon. I remember seeing this at a comic store there, so I think that's where I got this. 179 eBay purchase that sent me back $20. It's a nice copy. It does have, general wear, but a really great cover. And again, they have this sort of the same sort of background look that they did with Superman 233 a couple years later. And this is the issue where, in addition to her losing her powers, they took all the mythology away, because the Amazons discovered that there was something was going wrong with Paradise Island, and they had to go phase into another dimension, or else they would cause the Earth to explode or whatever. It doesn't matter, but the upshot was that's basically why Diana lost her powers, is because Paradise Island disappeared from the Earth, and she decided to stay behind while the rest of the Amazons disappeared. And then the hits just keep on coming. You can see I actually paid $1 for this at a junk shop. It's 180. Mike Zakowski doing the artwork on the series, and then this is pure 100% Zakowski. You can tell just immediately. Some of these have other inkers and stuff on them. The next issue looks much more polished. The cover, I mean. But this is the death of Steve Trevor. And when I say the death of Steve Trevor, he dies. He very suddenly. So Steve Trevor, her longtime boyfriend, at this point had been over 25 years of continuity, gone, and he sort of stays dead, because this is before they kept bringing people back. But later writers wanted to have a Steve Trevor around, and some of the lengths they went to end up with a Steve Trevor in the book were ill-advised. Let's say we're going to see another Steve Trevor show up later, who's sort of like a construct of the gods, but not the real Steve Trevor. 181, cool skiing cover. These issues are very James Bond. It's sort of the 60s Emma Peel inspired action stories, and I think they're just so cool. They're just so good. So much better than the stuff that Conager had been writing with the book for so long. It's just really, really cool. 182, I think you see some women with swords attacking. I think this is the storyline where we get introduced to Dr. Cyber. For me, Dr. Cyber is the best Wonder Woman supervillain. For those not familiar with Dr. Cyber, she's basically Wonder Woman's ideological opposite, which is why I think she's so compelling. And she is trying to like take over the world or whatever, but she's doing it with this army of women that she is training in as these sort of like fascist killers. And so whereas Diana's message is to bring love to man's world and teach man, and by man I mean men, like the power of womanhood, the power of peace and love and all this stuff. Dr. Cyber is doing the exact opposite. She's taking women and teaching them evil and corrupting them and using women as a destructive force to take over the world. And then over the course of these issues here, where Dr. Cyber makes her first appearance, she gets horribly disfigured fighting Wonder Woman. And so there's this very personal stakes where she blames Wonder Woman for all this facial scarring that she has. We'll see this in a little bit. But yeah, I think she doesn't have any powers, so she's sort of like a Lex Luthor, although she ends up getting like a suit of armor and sort of a Doctor Doom style thing once she gets scarred. So there's a little bit of Doom, there's a little bit of Luthor, but there's a whole lot of just pure ideological opposition, which I think makes for a really great villain. And then she's got this shadowy organization all over the globe, and she has all this advanced technology like a James Bond villain, because that's basically what they're doing here. So great underused, the sort of character that you can't really use just super strength against. You've got to really outthink him. So I love Dr. Cyber. Criminally underused, no pun intended. That's followed by great cover. Check out this awesome cover, 183. 183, 184, a rare two-parter from this period. Again, some people would call this the Silver Age. I have long felt that DC actually began the Bronze Age out of necessity earlier than Marvel did. So for me, this is Bronze Age. This is where the Bronze Age starts, 178 for Wonder Woman. But just check out this amazing cover. And this is a two-part story, 183 and 184, where Diana goes through. I paid $5 for this. You can see the sticker still in the bag. Diana goes through this portal to the dimension that Paradise Island is stuck in. And there's like Ares is there, I think. And there's like all these armies, and there's this giant battle. This storyline sort of brings the mythology back, but in a really cool sort of epic way. There's just these epic battle scenes, and here's Diana falls in battle and is carried off on her shield, and it's just tremendous. I think for me, these are the two. This story, 183, 184, best Bronze Age Wonder Woman story, period, right there. Followed by maybe one of the worst. It's 185, which is basically a parable about the dangers of lesbianism. DC had this burr up their butts about the counterculture in the late 60s, and this is basically like this girl has been basically enslaved by these sort of militant hippie feminists. They're all women, and Diana sort of rescues her, and it's really weird and a very unfortunate story. Really not good. 186, really cool cover. There's some really good covers in this run. This is the first appearance of Morgana the Witch. And this is a character that Sikowski came up with, and he clearly was... This is basically the comic book equivalent of a backdoor pilot. You know, a TV show where they have a special episode where they introduce these cool new characters that they're trying to spin off into a new TV show, but they want to test them out first. That's what this is here. Because Sikowski uses Morgana 2 or 3 times, not just in this title, but I forget where else, but he uses her somewhere else. I think it might be when Sikowski was doing the Supergirl series in Adventure. Morgana shows up over there. He's really pushing this character, Morgana the Witch. And she's just not that interesting, but the cover's great. And then we have 187. Haven't mentioned the logo. Love the logo. I mean, I love most Wonder Woman logos. The only one that I think is really boring of all the Wonder Woman logos, of course, is the one that came right before it. Come on. There's so many good Wonder Woman logos. 188. So here's Dr. Cyber. You see Cyber's revenge, and she is showing her face is scarred here. We get our first bondage cover. We're going to see a whole bunch of these coming up. A whole bunch. So if you're into bondage covers, just batten the hatches, because we're about to go through a slew of them here. Really cool. You know, this is, you know, more than a decade before Rambo, but here she is with a machine gun, and then she's somewhere in Southeast Asia. I forget if she's in Cambodia or Thailand. It's, you know, the story, this is taking place during the Vietnam War. There's like a MiG. How cool is that cover, right? Red for death. Great covers on these. Lita, where are you? This is the girl she rescued from the hippies. Okay. Special issue. You see the covers. It's like, this is the issue dedicated to this very YouTube video, I think. Great outfit she's wearing there. Really great. This is just a recap as to why these exist. This feels like the dreaded Deadline Doom or something. It's reprints. 192, cool Sikowski cover. Assault on Castle Skull. Sort of a bondage cover. There's a guy in the background who's tied to a log. Here's number 193. This says $15 on it. I don't think I paid that for it, because that doesn't seem like me. But it's Angela. Really cool colors on this cover. I really like the blue sky and the night sky. Some dramatic. You will go through the wedding. Would you rather be a dead Diana Prince or a live queen? Really cool cover. You know, Lois Lane has all these wedding covers. Well, guess what? It's Wonder Woman in 194. Kind of reminds me of The Princess Bride. 195, The Mystery of the House That Wasn't. Uh, 196. Okay, so now we're getting... This is the first of the 25-cent giant size books. And this has... reprint of the cheetah in it. We got another bondage cover. I really don't like this bondage cover. So I don't want to talk too much about bondage covers, I guess, but I think everyone understands the titillation behind the bondage covers, you know? Sort of the mix of the sex and the implied potential violence, and like, we don't have to get into it. Obviously with Wonder Woman, it's an inherent part of the character to have bondage elements. That's fine. But to me, this goes a little too far. The violence is a little too much on this. The implied violence here. I don't know. I like some of the other ones. I'm not being a prude. I do like a lot of the bondage covers, but this one has always kind of felt a little bit squicky to me. I don't love it. So this is also going to be the end of the Sikowski era. And also we're getting this oddball pairing where, well, it's not that oddball given the context of these stories, but Johnny Double shows up in some of these stories for a few issues here. And then the series gets completely derailed. Now, the book at this point is bi-monthly. I should mention that because it's important when you get to these two here, which are reprinting issues that I just showed you from the last 2 years. Sikowski at this point is being kicked off of the book. So whatever, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but Sikowski's gone. And they bring in Dorothy Woolfolk as editor, and I think these are the only 2 issues that she edited, and they're reprint issues, while they're like buying time trying to bring in a new creative team. And they follow the same pattern as 191, where they've got a cool looking mod Wonder Woman with the covers introducing the stories. So that's 197. Here's 198. And this one is a double-sized issue that reprints both 183 and 184. So I can't, like, sales on the book took a massive nosedive right here. They actually had jumped up with the new look Wonder Woman. It was doing pretty well. But when we get to this point, Sikowski leaves, and there's a period, again, this is bi-monthly. So between this story coming out and then 199, the next new story, there's basically 6 months. And all you get in that 6 months was these reprint books. And I think it really killed the momentum of the series, and sales just started tanking. But when they come out of it, we have 2 of the great classic Wonder Woman covers, 199 and 200. Again, bondage covers, the great Jeffrey Catherine Jones doing the covers here. Just tremendous. Tremendous. And the story involves Dr. Cyber, I think, because as we'll see here, the next issue is the Beauty Hater. I know that I think this is one of the stories where she's trying to get revenge. There's a really creepy story. It might be this one, or it might have been the last Dr. Cyber one, where basically Dr. Cyber is trying to take Diana's face so she can surgically repair her own using Diana's face. It's really disturbing. Great bondage cover, black cover. I paid not that much for these because I got them on eBay in probably 2009, so it's quite a while ago now. I think they were $20-$25 each. They were advertised as being like in the 7.5 range, and they're not quite that high, but they're somewhere between like a 6.5. So they're really nice looking. Great issues to have in anybody's collection. Really underrated next issue. Very underrated and underappreciated. It's Wonder Woman versus Catwoman. Check this out. Yes, they're having a samurai sword fight. And this happens in the book where they're having Catwoman and Wonder Woman have a samurai sword fight while suspended over a pit of fire. this is a really, for me, this is a really underrated book. It suffers compared to the last two because it doesn't have the Jeffrey Catherine Jones cover. It's the first issue at the 20 cents, so it's got this big thing here, which I like the double bullets, but when they have this big banner, it does sort of mess things up a little bit. This is the only issue with that big banner, but really cool cover, really underrated. Speaking of backdoor pilots, out of nowhere, making very little sense for Wonder Woman. It's a continuation of the Catwoman story. So we got Catwoman and Wonder Woman fighting, but well, who's this behind them? Yes, it's Fawford and the Grey Mouser, because they somehow end up in this an alternate fantasy universe where Fritz Lieber's famous fantasy characters Fawford and the Grey Mouser are. And this is basically, they ended up getting their own series in Swords of Sorcery, and this is sort of a tease for them over there. This story is written by Samuel R. Delaney. It was the one issue he did before he started his epic storyline. I won't get into that too much, but of course, the next issue is 203. I did a whole video about this and about how he had this incredibly progressive storyline, really digging into second and third wave feminism and the abortion laws at the time, because this was 72 going into 73, and the whole 9 yards, and DC canceled all of it and used Gloria Steinem and her calls to have Diana get her powers back as political cover to cancel this groundbreaking story before it began. So this is the last issue of the mod Wonder Woman era. It's a great issue, but it sort of seems completely random and out of nowhere because it's all about feminism and women's lib stuff, and then it ends on this cliffhanger and you never find out what happens because they dump it, and it's supposed to be setting something up. It's supposed to be the beginning, not just a weird footnote. Next issue, though, Robert Conagher takes over the book again. He had been editing the book since Marston died in 1947, and editing and writing it for like 20 years before he was kicked off for the new look. He triumphantly comes back and he gets this great cover to start the run. Introduces Nubia, the new Black Wonder Woman, who is a really cool character. They probably could have done better with the name, but hey, it's the 70s, so for the 70s it's not that bad. At least her name wasn't Black Wonder Woman. This is a book that I didn't realize has now become a bit of a minor key. My copy has a subscription crease or something, so it's not that great, but it's a really nice looking, like 4, maybe a 4.5, and I love yellow covers. So this is the beginning of a 3-parter. Here we have, I forgot to mention, of course, 203 bondage cover. Kind of an egregious bondage cover. It's just 205 bondage cover. Very, very suggestive. This is part of this 3-parter with Nubia. And then a really cool cover, again with Nubia. This is, I really dig this cover. This is a good storyline, but it's the only one that Conagher did. This was in the excuse. He was like, we're going to give you your Black Wonder Woman. We're going to give her her powers back. In 204, they killed off I Ching, the mentor who had trained Diana when she didn't have any powers. He just kills him in the opening scene and brings back Themyscira. So basically reboots everything to the way it was beforehand. In that process, he also has a scene where he has an assassin shoot Dorothy Woolfolk in the head, which I think, again, she had been previously the editor on Wonder Woman before Conagher came back for a couple issues. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes between the two of them, but it seems really out of line for him to put that in the story. But he basically just did this to mollify the powers that be. He had no intention of carrying this stuff on, because I really dig his work in some other areas, but he seems to me to have just nothing but contempt for Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman fans, because at the end of this storyline, first of all, we get a really good bondage cover. But then he basically is doing literal rewrites of books that he had done in the 40s and 50s. They're aimed for a much younger audience, not really have anything to do with modern comics or what Wonder Woman was doing at this time or anything. And he just takes these old scripts and has them redrawn, and just couldn't care less. Yellow cover. So this is a young Diana. So he's not quite back to Wonder Tot, but he's aiming for Wonder Tot. Another one here. My copy of this is really bad, but it's okay. These are crappy. So the other thing he does here is he does bring back the original logo, which is great logo. But these stories are just the definition of phoning it in. They basically canceled the whole New Look era, and then he immediately would just couldn't have cared less about this. And sales are continuing to tank. So right after this, we get first there's 211, which is a 100-page giant full of reprints and stuff. But then with 212, we start a very famous storyline. This is what I consider to be another soft reboot, because Conager is just doing these kids' stories and reboots and rewriting old stuff, and that wasn't working. So they bring in Marty Pasco to bring Wonder Woman back into the DC universe. And this issue begins the 12 labors of Wonder Woman. So, in mythology, there was the 12 labors of Hercules, where he had to prove himself to the gods by doing these 12 impossible tasks. So what happens in this story is, now that she has her powers back, she can rejoin the Justice League, because she had left the Justice League since she no longer had superpowers. In this story, so the Justice League is like, okay, come on back. And Diane is like, I'm not sure I'm worthy of being in the Justice League anymore. Haven't been a superhero and for a long time. I've been more of a secret agent. So I'm not sure I can still cut it. Now, this is problematic, of course. There's a lot of people that really find this premise to be irritating. I get it, but it's basically an excuse to have a Justice League tie-in every issue, starting with here, where the different Justice Leaguer is guest starring, and they're basically just sort of telling the Justice League what happened in Wonder Woman's latest adventure as she continues to prove herself as being worthy to rejoin the team. So in this issue, it's Superman. And then next issue, it's the Flash. And we're back to this, another different logo. It's still not as bad as the original, but it's not as bad as the one that we started the run with in 177, but it's not as cool as the original. This logo is just okay for me. But anyway, Flash. 214, now we've got 100-page giants. This one, the lead story is the new one, and that's Green Lantern. And some of these, they're involved with the stories. They're sort of like team ups. So it's really cool to see Diana teaming up with a different Justice Leaguer in every issue. Here's Mars instead of Ares, but same person with Aquaman. This is a cool one because it's got Black Canary and Wonder Woman. $217, we got another giant size. It's no longer 100 pages, but this one's got Green Arrow, and it's actually got a Mike Grell cover. This one's got two Justice Leaguers. It's Red Tornado and the Phantom Stranger. So I guess they figured they weren't important enough for an individual story, but Phantom Stranger is awesome, and having Phantom Stranger in a Wonder Woman comic is just really cool. Elongated Man and a bondage cover. really nice copy of 220 Wonder Woman, sort of a bondage cover, fighting the Atom's archenemy, Kronos. Here's the Dr. Cyber cover. This is the one where she's trying to cut off Wonder Woman's face to take it for herself. It starts Hawkman. Really disturbing. Dr. Cyber seems to die in this issue. She does, of course, come back later, but it's unfortunate because she's not really used for a long time. And really big fan of Dr. Cyber. 222, Batman. This is the last of the labors. And this, obviously, you can see is Dee. I don't think it's Dee Ramone, but we don't know. It could be from the collection of Dee Ramone. Maybe it was Dee that also drew goatees on everybody on my cover here. It's funny because Hippolyta is saying, don't look at his face, the shock could kill you. Well, don't look at your own face, because I'm pretty sure the shock would kill you if you saw that you have a giant goatee. But anyway, 223. $224. So we're getting some mythology. We're getting back into this. This is one of the rare times. Every so often they dip into the mythology instead of just having the superhero stuff, and it works better. $225 is a cool Black Lightning cover, but it's not the character Black Lightning because he didn't exist yet. But it's a cool cover. So 226 and 227, this is a storyline where we get this new Steve Trevor, and I forget all the details, but it's really a weird thing where it's something like one of the gods thinks there needs to be a Steve Trevor or something, and so they make a construct or they disguise someone as Steve Trevor. I forget, but whatever the case, there's now a new version of Steve Trevor. There's a person who has the memories of Steve Trevor and thinks they're Steve Trevor and fills the role of Steve Trevor, but isn't technically Steve Trevor, as they were created by the gods to be the Steve Trevor for Wonder Woman. I don't know why they decided to do that. I think it's really dumb. And in the next video, there's a storyline where that Steve Trevor dies a hideous, terrible death at the hands of a later writer who must have also thought it was dumb. And then much later, that Steve Trevor comes back from the dead, and there's another Steve Trevor, and it just gets really weird. But anyway, Hephaestus, the god of fire, and here we are, 227. So there's the first 50 issues of Wonder Woman from the Bronze Age. And the next issue we get yet another reboot. Now we've already seen 3. We've got 178, of course, the big one. And then we've got 204, where they reboot things back to the original status quo and just dump everything. And then we get 212, where they scrap all of Conager's stuff and decide to put her back in the DC universe with the Justice League and all this stuff. But that only lasts for 15 issues, because in the next issue, at the beginning of the next video, we're going to have a whole new direction, starting with 228, where the series suddenly becomes about the Earth 2 Wonder Woman, and it's all set in World War II, and blah, blah, blah. But we'll get into that next time. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this look at the first 50 issues of the Bronze Age Wonder Woman. Again, next time I'll be starting with 228. I'm not quite sure how long I'll run. Part of me thinks it makes sense to end with 268 because there's another soft reboot, but that means the last video will be extra long. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out when we get to that. But thanks very much for watching. Any comments, questions, please leave it below. I've also got a thing here you can subscribe to. I got some other videos, like buttons, bells, I don't know, dumbwaiter. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.